it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew as usual. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spigs18 or Anthony. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch or give us a subscribe over on YouTube. It really helps us out a ton. So, Dean, what are we doing here today?
Well, it's one of those nights. So I'm just going to start out by saying, teacher, game master, and producer of the wonderful YouTube channel, Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain. We have none other than Matt Yancik. You got to check out his channel where you can experience actual plays, game theory discussions, interviews with luminaries of the gaming industry, and great literary talents of our time. Game masters and players alike can sharpen their storytelling and tabletop RPG skills just by watching his show. This is definitely a place that fosters a memorable game every time you sit down to play. So let's give a big see you welcome to none other than Matt Yancik.
Oh
Matt?
my goodness! I've that has got to be the best introduction I've ever received, and to be honest, it is the only introduction that I have ever received. But I cannot imagine. I think I'm just going to leave now because I'm not going to be able to live up to all of that awesome stuff. But thank you for that, Dean. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Hey, Matt, welcome back. Welcome to the CU. I was going to say welcome back because we talk all the time, but welcome to the CU nonetheless.
I know. Yeah, thank you very much. It's very strange to be like at the other end of things tonight. It's really, this is actually, for anyone watching tonight, this is the very first time I've ever been on anyone else's channel or stream or program or anything. So I'm super excited and flattered that you would actually ask me.
I've actually asked you several times.
It's true.
That's a story.
It's true. That's another story, but yeah, it is true. He's been, you broke me down finally. Like you did, yeah.
So Matt, for our viewers that may not know are familiar with your channel and know you well, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in tabletop RPGs?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Matt. I run Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain, and it's something I kind of started up during the pandemic. But as far as me and my experience goes with RPGs, so I've been playing for probably over 35 years or so now. I don't really want to talk about how many years I've been playing, and I've been running games. I started with Marvel Superheroes from TSR, the yellow box. That was actually like my first game when I was maybe 11 or 10. So I've been running for like forever. But I guess my day job is teaching. So I've been an English teacher for something like 20. That's another number I don't want to think about either, but for something like 20 years. So yeah, I'm kind of like a blend of those two.
You didn't start with D&D?
No, that's okay. Well, wait a minute. Let me back up and clarify. The actual first game that I recall playing was over at a friend's house when I was 10 or 11, getting into RPGs, and we played Tunnels and Trolls.
Nice.
If you can believe it. And it was very strange. I mean, I think I'm trying to remember if I even knew what D&D was. I'm sure I must have heard of it, but it was my first real experience like with this kind of storytelling format and the ad-libbing and making everything up as you go along. That stuff was all brand new to me.
That's always great to hear when someone starts outside of the D&D sphere to get into gaming.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's great too, like, because if you maybe watch my channel, this is a thing you may notice about it, but there's pretty much almost no D&D, and that's not because I don't play or don't like D&D. It's not because I wasn't raised on D&D, but for me, I mean, I guess my interests kind of lay elsewhere, and so like I remember it was like Tunnels and Trolls, I think the Marvel Superheroes game, and then also I want to say there was a very early, or maybe it was the only, James Bond role-playing game, which I was playing. So these were like the Tunnels and Trolls stuff was obviously fantasy oriented, but the other two were kind of outside that genre. So
That's awesome. What you call it? I wish now that we mentioned it's awesome to hear someone who started something other than D&D. I wish I could have started with Cypher System. Oh my gosh.
We
But either
probably
way,
all wish that was possible.
for real, if I could go back in time, oof. But either
Yeah.
way, sorry. Moving along here a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about your YouTube channel, and can you tell us the story behind the name Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain?
Ooh, I'm almost scared to reveal the truth about the name. Um, Let me start with what the channel is. So originally, like, it was a pandemic project, kind of like the same as a lot of other people who started their own channels, or like kind of looked at this, what they were doing with their lives, and started to re-examine it. I had been doing a lot of teaching online because of the pandemic. Obviously, there was about a it was probably a 9-month period where I was teaching predominantly online. And so I had to get really good really quickly with Zoom. And so I kind of like started thinking, well, you know what? Like, I'm kind of lazy. I wasn't really, before that, I had been sort of going to conventions a lot and trying to promote things that I was writing and little bits that I was working on for RPGs, adventures, and micro settings and things like that. But I'm a little bit lazy at heart, and I'm also a little bit of ironically, a little bit of an introvert. And so I thought, oh my goodness, like Zoom is the best place to kind of, or Zoom is like a really great tool. Like, I'd actually started refining how to use it, how to make the Zoom classroom more interesting. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do some actual plays, or maybe I'll do something like really something. I was doing these adventures for buddies of mine, and I kind of had this idea in the back of my head that, like, I thought we were doing something kind of different and something maybe a little bit outside of the genre. And I thought, why not try streaming it? And so we sat down one night, and after I worked it all out and kind of plotted out what I thought was going to be a 10 to 12 episode campaign, it turned into like 20 episodes. And then I was just doing actual plays with it. The name Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain, you know what? I'm going to leave that a mystery for now. I'm going to leave it a mystery. And I'm going to leave it up to people that watch the channel might know where it came from. I think I may have said it once or twice, but if I did, I probably wasn't thinking straight. But for now, if you can guess where it came from, send me a message and we'll talk, because you have a future in making puzzles up for some of my adventures.
Oh, that's awesome. The
I'll
challenge
leave it
is
as a
on.
mystery. There's a challenge, yeah. And there may even be a prize. There may be a prize if you get to that destination. But first of all, you have to find the true answer. So
Now, are
that's
we
awesome.
allowed to participate, or like somebody like
anyone that I have collaborated with, interviewed, been interviewed by, is disqualified. It's got to be a subscriber on the channel that has not really interacted with me on the channel. Let's put
all
it
right, I'll shut up then.
that way. You're welcome to guess after the stream, but not
So,
live, not here.
With that being said, then okay, fine. We won't worry about where the name came from and all that, since the challenge has been laid out. But on your channel, you've had some of the most memorable interviews with great people in the gaming industry, great literaries, and so on and so forth. Is there an interview that really stands out to you?
Oh my goodness. Is there one that stands out? Well, there are a few that stand out to me just because I've been panicking when I stream them, and sometimes I worry about whether or not they're actually going out and all of that. To be honest, the one that stands out the most is the very first one that I ever did. And so, as I kind of mentioned, I think I did 20 something, I did 15 or 20 episodes of a campaign, an actual play. And that's all that I had on the channel until, and I've been kind of like thinking a lot about I don't know, doing something different. I just wanted to do something like more interesting or more meaty, I guess. And I was scrolling through Twitter, and I'm not really a Twitter guy. And Sean K. Reynolds had just put up. He just tweeted. He said, "Well, if anybody wants me to come on their show, I'd be happy to come on and do a show with you." And an interview, not like co-hosted or anything. And so I sort of thought, I thought about it for about 10 seconds, and without even really putting much thought into it and not knowing whether or not I could do it, and not having intro titles and not having music and not having like layouts and graphics and any of that stuff, I sent him a message, and within, I mean, it must have been like within an hour or two, he got back to me about it. And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come on the show. Not a problem." And I
Sean's
didn't.
the best.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I'm not even quite sure where the name Role Player with 1,000 Faces came from. Like, I don't even know if I had that name, but I think I had 40 or 50 subscribers. You know, I mean, I'm small now, right? But I had 40 or 50 subscribers at the time, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come on the program, no problem." And I think like a few weeks later, because I think I had to say, "Whoa, I wasn't expecting such a quick answer," and I had to take the time to make the intro and come up with a title and come up with layouts and think of a theme and all of that stuff. He was on the program, so I don't know if that's a disappointing answer.
No,
I
Not at
don't.
all. We love Sean.
I mean, you have a couple of interviews that me and you talk about interviewing people all the time offline, but Kevin Simbada, that's an interview that I still want, and jelly is all hell that you got that interview.
Kevin Ciambieta was very nice to me. Like that was a very big one as well. So I guess Sean K. Reynolds is the one that stands out to me because he just agreed to it, and that was kind of like the genesis and the start. And I've always sort of said that I want to do 1,000 episodes of the show, and he's going to be my 1,000th episode.
Nice.
Like I'm going to bookend it. And I actually thought, okay, well, that might not be realistic. Maybe he can come on every 100 episodes, like he can do the 100, 200, 300. The Kevin Ciambieta one was, I wasn't even seriously expecting to get it.
Yeah, I love that interview.
I was not. I did 2 with him. Like the first one, basically, I tried to email him and I couldn't find his email. And then I tried to find him on Twitter, and then I tried to find him like in all these places, and I couldn't find him. And I found like there's this little form that you can send on the Palladium website. And I said, "Hi there, I've done like 10, 15 interviews. Here's an example of what I do. Would you ever would you ever come on the show and allow me to talk to you? Your games meant a lot to me and continue to mean a lot to me." And in that little form, there's a place where you put your number in, and I'll punch my number in. I'm thinking, nah, he's not. That's for like some sort of like records purposes or something, right? And so I'm walking around in Cambridge. I'm in Massachusetts. I'm walking around in Cambridge, and the phone, and I'm like going to get like dinner or something, or like going to visit like my girlfriend's parents, or maybe some combination, and the phone rings, and it says it's like in Michigan or whatever, and I think he's in Michigan. I'm like, who the hell is this? Who's calling me right now? And I hate picking up numbers that I don't know. Pick it up, and this voice says, "Hey, this is Kevin Ciambieta. Can I talk to Matt, please?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. Who are you?" And he's like, "This is Kevin over at Palladium Books." And I'm like, "Kevin at Palladium?" It was incredible. And I'm like, "What? The first thing I was like, who the F are you? And like, who's calling me up and is this you, Frank, or is this you, like, Steve?" And it wasn't, it was him. And I was just like, "Oh, well, I'm actually heading out. Please believe me when I say I really want to talk to you. Can I call you back later?" And I called him back later, and we talked about it. And, he enjoyed it so much. He asked me to interview him again, like a few months later for some sort of Gen Con function or something. I can't
Well,
remember.
I'm definitely gonna hit him up then, because I was always, I don't know, I for some reason, maybe because I played so much Rifts as a teenager, I kind of hold him in, I put him in like Monty in like that same
Yes.
regard.
Yes,
Like, 'cause that's
yes.
basically my childhood is Palladium games.
They are like he's one of the titans. Like I've interviewed several titans of the industry, right?
Mhm.
And he is up there, and he has been nothing but kind to me. He would call me, he would email me, he included me on a lot of things.
I'm gonna send him an email and say, Matt said you coming on next Wednesday.
Well, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, let's be careful about that. Let's be careful about. We really haven't talked that much recently, but
But Matt, I mean, actually though, you have had two shows that were great, and that was that Walter John Williams and Jeff Grubb.
Yes.
I got to actually game with Walter, so that was like freaking awesome as well.
Oh my goodness, Walter has been, so first of all, both Walter and Jeff have been really, really nice. Like, here's the thing, everybody's been super nice to me. I don't know why. My mother would dispute that I deserve to have this much niceness showered on me by these luminaries, but somehow everybody's been very nice and friendly with the channel and helped me. So Jeff Grubb was really great. Like, I contacted him, and I told him the interview's probably going to be about an hour and 20 minutes, and we went to like 2 hours. And I think that was a little troublesome, but he was good natured about it. He talked to me quite a bit. We had originally had a little plan where later on, so Walter, of course, has been very nice. I consider him like a friend of the channel. Like, he and I've been running, it was scary. So I did my interview with him, and I said, if you ever want, like, the only way I could ever repay you is to run a game or two for you, and maybe hope that I can sort of pay you back for how helpful that you've been. And I ended up running like half a dozen, private games, scrimmage games, if you want to call them that. And he'd play with me quite a bit. And then I invited him on to game with us for Hero State. And he wrote like partially wrote the Wild Card series, and of course he's most famous for his cyberpunk works. I really love his Quillifer books. Those have been coming out, and Metropolitan and game stuff like that. But he came on, and he would play with us, and he's been super, super kind to the channel. So I really owe a debt of gratitude to him and honestly every guest, and including you guys for coming on.
We've actually known you for a couple of years now.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how I met you, Matt.
One of us
Matt
messaged
contacted me over the internet.
Was that it?
Yeah.
It must have been in the Cypher gaming group.
Yeah.
Probably.
And we actually played a game with Matt before.
Yes.
We played. Yeah, we played.
Yes. We never finished it.
Yeah,
we never finished it. We left it on a cliffhanger.
Never say never. We have an exciting announcement at the end of the show, by the way.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But before I even ask my question, I just want to say that it's funny that you mentioned Sean K. Reynolds as your first interview, because Sean K. Reynolds was our first official interview. We had Chris Robin Negline on from Gonza Gaming. But that was before we moved to an interview format, so it was more like a conversation.
Right.
But the first interview we had was with Sean K. Reynolds. So
that's
funny that we both have this very same first interview.
Actually, Anthony, our first interview was Jeff D.
No, Jeff D was after Sean K. Reynolds. If you go to our channel,
there's
a
rift in the relationship now. They're going to argue.
I mean, I'm positive because I'm the one that schedules the interview. So if you go to the interviews,
it's so
Sean K. Reynolds. Chris Negline was our first guest, but we weren't in interview format at the time.
Yeah, I feel like in a way, every time I see Sean K. Reynolds post or like something on Twitter, there's always someone in the thread like saying how nice he is, and like hearing you've interviewed him and I've interviewed him, and it feels like lots of people. I feel like he's an interview floozy. He may be going from channel to channel, just getting interviewed by everybody. So
Oh, he definitely he's already on the list to be interviewed by us again because he
He's
doesn't
been
like
on
the
4
fact that
times.
Charles has
Very nice.
tied him for interviews.
And D mentioned Jeff D. That was our geek out moment for an interview, though.
Jeff
When-
D
when
would
we
be a
interviewed
good
Jeff
one.
D, that me and Dean were actually nervous, like going over the
Right. I can totally understand.
And me, the young one, is just like, we got to meet another
guy?
cool TTRPG guy.
Right.
But me and Dean were like, yo, Jeff D's coming on tonight.
When Jeff D said yes, when Jeff D told us yes, I lost it. I was like,
How did
Anthony,
you
I got
guys-
Jeff D.
How did you guys get him then? So if you're
He
gonna do your
put that
first
in-
interview,
I've
did
been
you just?
friends with Jeff D on Facebook for years.
Okay.
And I follow the V&V
Right.
page.
Yeah.
And I just one day, said, all right, I'm going to take a wild card. And I messaged him, I private messaged him on Facebook.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll come on your show.
Sure. Yeah. That's how it is with me too. I'll just email people and they're like, yeah. And I'm like,
Either way, he does fantastic interviews. Of course, after the stream, if you want to go to his channel, check it out. He has a long list of great interviews to watch. I highly
you.
recommend many of them.
yeah.
Watch them all. Watch them all.
I'm very lucky.
It's
lucky.
very obvious, Matt, from listening to your show, that you have an extreme love for tabletop RPGs. Why do you think RPGs have impacted your life so much? And do you have a favorite RPG?
Well, I do have a favorite. But I'll answer this the other way and I'll start with how they've impacted. I mean, I think the truth is I love storytelling in general. I mean, I think if you watch my channel, you'll see that I'm more of a storytelling narrative guy. And but I'm also very much I love to write. At one point I was in the film industry before I was a teacher. And I feel a little bit like the combination of role-playing games, streaming, writing, English, all sort of come together in RPGs. And to be honest, I just really like to play pretend. And I know that probably sounds silly, but like I think it's really important. I think like as an adult, I think it's kind of important that we not sort of forget that being an adult doesn't mean that you have to just stop having fun or be serious or whatever. Like I went through a period in my life where I was extremely serious. Like after I graduated college, I moved out to LA and I was going to be a movie executive and I was going to work at, a big studio and I was going to do this, I was going to do that. And I was going to spend my money on a car and a house and I kind of basically I did all that stuff. But at a certain point, I sort of realized I had forgotten, like I went into film to use my imagination to make stuff up and to role play in a way through filmmaking. And so, I think what I do now, while it's not exactly all of those things, it scratches the itch of many of them. And I still have a long way to go with the channel. I feel like things are not the way like that I want them to be. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, it'll be closer to how I really envision what I want to do and the stories I want to tell. And when I say stories, I don't mean just actual plays. I mean the interviews and all of that, like documenting like people's experiences in the industry. So I think for me, role play just represents like adult play for me. It's the scratching the itch of my imagination and all of that. And as far as my favorite game goes, can I tell you about my Lord and Savior Numenera? Please, do you have a moment to spare?
I think we can manage it, right, guys?
Is that
Yeah,
okay? I don't
it'll
know.
be okay.
I don't want to say anything to go against the spirit of Cypher Unlimited. I think the funny thing is, like, So I have like two warring parts in my mind. Like I have like the English teacher part that wants to be really serious and has like, 700-page volumes on Shakespeare that I teach or whatever. And I want to take literature and all of that kind of seriously. But then on the other hand, I have the part of me that likes the popular fiction and all of that stuff. Um, I think the first I've always loved role-playing games, but I've always sort of felt like role-playing games are kind of lacking. The settings and things like that just don't feel real to me. They don't, they feel contrived, and they also feel like a carbon copy of a carbon copy of a carbon copy. You know, everything is kind of evolved from Dungeons and Dragons, I feel. Not everything, it's really wrong to say, but a lot of stuff that I see out there, I feel like has. But Numenera, I think, was the first setting where I sort of thought, yeah, this does it. This really, really builds a world that is quite different and interesting to me and evokes like all kinds of storytelling possibilities and emotions and things like that. And I think it has to do with the fine balance that for those of you that maybe have not seen the book or books or yet, I feel like Numenera, the construction of the setting is really well balanced. Like it's balanced between too much detail and not enough detail. And there's just enough to sort of put you in the center where you can take it one direction or another direction. And I have no doubt that like the ninth world that I built in my head is probably totally different than like what Monty Cook does or other people do or whatever. But on the other hand, I feel like it's also very firmly rooted in like what other people's games are and what Monty's game might be and what your game might be. And I feel like the what he's achieved with that balance in the game from my own standpoint as like an English teacher, as a lover of literature and fables and mythology and things like that, he's created a place where I feel like I can run around and play and sort of make my mark, but still at the same time it's very, very real and it doesn't feel like sometimes when I'm playing in a homebrew, like my own homebrew world, I feel like there's something not as legit about it, even though I shouldn't think that way. But it feels like it's rooted and it's got a foundation to it that, helps me tell some
What I
great stories.
I love that answer, Matt. And I say that to people all the time when it comes to Numenera. Numenera actually feels real.
Mm,
In
yeah,
the sense that,
yeah,
if you go to New York City and you hang out with Anthony, you're gonna have one experience. But if you're in New York City and you're hanging with me or another New York City native, it's gonna be a different experience.
yeah.
But it's still New
Yes,
York City.
it's good.
It's
Yes,
still New York City. And that's
yes,
what the ninth world is. I love the fact that I love that there's so much canon, so much fodder to build from, but yet it's still uniquely yours.
yeah,
And
yeah. And that
that's the difference from other RPGs. So
I agree. I feel like it's a little bit more it's a little bit more abstract, but than a lot of other RPGs. It could be hard to wrap your mind around. But and it's not fair to say, like, I can't say it's the best RPG. I can only say it's my favorite, because everybody's got a favorite, and that's what makes it kind of the best to you.
right.
And the bones are there for me and my particular style, and also my players, the people that I play with, their style, for me to run with it. And I think back fondly, one of the best games. Actually, no, I'll say it. The best campaign I ever played was when I was living back in Alaska, and I played with these guys like for a year and a half or 2 years straight, and it was this amazing campaign. And it was the first time I think I've ever like finished a campaign. Like I've started many campaigns, played a lot of like sort of sporadic campaigns, but this one, over a year and a half or so. I mean, we must have played like I don't know how many games, but it was a weekly thing. Every Sunday we'd meet up, and it really made the setting real for me. And I
That's
think back,
awesome.
and that it was I think back and, I want to move back to see those guys and play with them again. That's like,
It is online play. You could always get the band
yes,
back together online.
I had been thinking about that. And what's interesting is that the way that I got back into the pandemic and playing again was I basically messaged a bunch of the friends of mine that I played with in high school. We played Rifts. And I said, guys, let's do like 15, 20 episodes of Rifts. And we played a sequel to our high school game. And so, yeah, that's one of the amazing things from technology that we can now do and achieve with our friends. So
Most definitely. Technology has definitely made things a lot easier in regards to playing these sort of games. Because scheduling, as everyone knows, is a nightmare. But with online tools, it's a little easier to squeeze that time in. And just two things before I move on to the next question here. The first thing is, I think you and Dean both wonderfully hit it nail on the head about why people love Numenera. It was just awesome to hear both y'all talk about it. It's just such an awesome setting. And yeah, the second thing was, I just want to read this comment real quick before I move on. What is it? Solo RPG guy or Donald said in the chat, I have a homework assignment for Matt. He has to teach the class all 600 plus pages of Tolus.
Oh, I would do that in a second.
I think we have plenty of people who would sign up for that panel.
Broke it up in, I just broke it up in my head. I can see it in 10 to 12, 2 to 3 hour classes and a little bit of a workshop in there as well. I can completely see it, like for sure. That's actually one of my other favorite settings besides Numenera. I love Tolus. I love it.
Well, for the guys that are posting questions in chat for Matt, after our questions, we're gonna write all these questions down, and then we'll if Matt has time to stay back, we're definitely gonna ask all these questions. So just please preface whatever question you have with the word question, so I will know to cut and paste it and copy it, so we can ask at the.
And I'll just say this to you. Matt. You come from the same ilk that a lot of us old time gamers. We like lots of information, but we don't like to be bound by it. We want to be able to build. It's the creative essence of it. Tallest is another one of those settings. It's another one of those places that has 672 pages of goodies, but none of them lock you into anything.
And
you can make it uniquely your own, and that's
stellar.
That's exactly. That is stellar. That is the best word. It's the playground for any creative mind. Anybody who wants to create and can take cues. So anytime something is offered like that, we eat it up.
Yep. But moving along here, you've talked about your channel a little bit, your YouTube channel, but do you have any advice for someone who wants to start a YouTube channel or to start streaming games? And what do you think is the biggest lesson you learned since starting all this?
Well, I guess my first bit of advice about starting, and I don't think it's necessarily just applicable to a YouTube channel or streaming or whatever, is just to do it. I think very often, like, our own nervousness and worry and perfectionism gets in the way of going out to do something. And there's a really interesting story about when George Lucas was going to first make Star Wars. He took it around, and I think everybody's heard the story where he took it to like all these different studios, and they said, no, we don't want to make this. We think this is not very good, and or this is not interesting, or science fiction is not popular, until finally he hit upon one studio, as we all know, when it was called 20th Century Fox, which was actually the studio I worked at, and that's why I sort of felt like I'd done my dream when I worked there. But at any rate, he got them to agree to make it, right? And then the next step was, how are we going to make the special effects? And at that time, all special effects were done what was called in-house. So every studio, special effects was not an industry at that time. It was just like, it was a department within studios. So he went to the people that did it in-house at Fox, and they said, this is actually impossible. You have to cut all this stuff out. And then so your next resort is you go to Universal or you go to Warner Brothers or you go wherever. You go to different studios, in-house studios, effects shops, and they would all say, sorry, this is impossible. So what he did was he said, okay, well, I'm going to go to a bunch of colleges, or I'm going to find a bunch of like carpenters, engineers, artists, model makers, things like that, people that have never made a movie before and don't know that it's impossible. And then I'm going to pay them and I'm going to make them make the effects. And so he did. He hired a bunch of kind of FX ignoramuses, but they were very good carpenters. They were very good
That's my
engineers.
next one shot. FX ignoramuses.
Yes, well, they were. It should it should be a show, actually.
That's going to
And
be an adventure. Yeah.
He went to them and he didn't tell them. He said, okay, here's what it's got to be. This has got to be this big ship, and here's a bunch of paintings, and this is what it's going to look like. Make that happen. And then he didn't tell them that every studio in the business had said you couldn't do it. So they did it. And I think if you want to do something, if you want to start and do something, you kind of have to forget that everybody tells you can't do it. And you should just go ahead and do it. And I think that that's probably the most important thing. And that applies to writing a novel. It applies to opening a pet store. It applies to any of those things that people, you hesitate to do because you're like, it's tough to do. I don't think I could do that.
It's funny you tell that story, Matt, because that happens about every 40 years. There's a big story like that.
Yeah.
I mean, 2008, they told Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios you could not create universe, a shared universe. And now 20 some odd movies later and $14 billion.
Right. And it's like those things are the number one. This Marvel Cinematic Universe makes more money than the comics. I mean, the comics are really just, it's unfortunate to say, but the comics have sort of become an advertisement for the films.
Yep.
Because there's no money in comics, and that's why poor artists and writers and all of that work in that industry are still not making any money and still being taken advantage of. But that industry just that whole genre blew up, and so I guess that's my advice. And boy, what have I learned? It's kind of hard to say, it's very hard to say. I mean, I feel a little bit like I've learned how to manage my presence a little bit better. And when I say that, I just mean to help make people feel comfortable. So I mentioned that I'm a teacher and I've been teaching for 20 years. And I've been teaching for 20 years, but I've never had, except for like a few training sessions and things, I've never had a camera turned on me to really, really watch how I did. And a few times I've had a lot, like every year I get like, someone from administration or certification or whatever coming in to watch, make sure I'm doing all right in the classroom, and we get feedback. But I've never actually had a camera on me. And every single time I do an interview, I run an actual play, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to sit down the next day and watch and listen to what I did, to help tell a story. And whether or not I'm doing an interview or I'm doing an actual play or I'm teaching someone in the classroom, everything I do has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in order to convey any meaning to someone, I need to I need to make sure that they kind of understand the context of what we're about to do, and then understand the question or the description that I give, and then something results because of it, right? So there's essentially like a realization, a reaction, and then a result from all of it. And I think by running my streams and by recording them and then watching them the next day or listening to them or whatever, reflecting on them, it's really taught me a lot about me. Like I look at a question and I say, I probably shouldn't have asked that question. I can tell they feel uncomfortable. I didn't take a hint. Or maybe I should have dug deeper on that other question. That person, that subject just wanted to talk to me about that and I missed it. Or the same is true of actual plays. Like I'll be running an actual play and I'll kick myself. And I think we all do this as GMs. But I kick myself the next day because I'm like, oh, I should have traveled down that avenue. And now there's a record of me missing that avenue. Like, whereas before, when I'm not streaming and I'm not recording and it's just live, I can screw up all I want. And then when I meet the crew the next week, I can sort of finesse it when I describe what happened the week before, and nobody really remember. I mean, unless it's something big, but nobody really remembers. So I think I learned a lot about, about how I approach people and the game and speaking. And
I mean,
That's ver-
oh, go ahead, Dean.
No, go ahead, because I gotta modify the question because he kind of answered my question.
Sorry.
No,
That's
I mean,
another thing I learned about is how to think of a new question. You guys are lucky because you can bounce between the three of you, but I have to come up with something
Make sure you
when I'm alone.
include the teacher aspect, but you said so many things in there that
I'm sorry.
No. What
sorry.
I was gonna say, you said so many things, that so many layers of things that are so intriguing to me that like I relate on a core level to a lot of the stuff you just said. Like the one about finding like yourself. I think that's the one thing that I personally, and I think us as a group, finding our presence in front of a camera is what I personally struggle the most with.
Yeah.
And us as a group, I can't speak for them, but me personally, I think that we struggle sometimes as a group having a unified presence. And I could totally understand that. I could totally, like, it's so many layers of everything you pretty much said. Like when you're writing questions and knowing when to dig deeper in an interview is all stuff that fascinates me to the core. Like I could talk.
It's hard.
I could talk about this all day. Like there's a certain skill that I feel like we haven't fully mastered yet, but I enjoy attempting to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a balancing act. Like there's that saying that like about spinning plates. I have like you're trying to spin a whole bunch of plates at once, and then add in the fact that you're streaming. And so I told you I come from a background of film, but even before that, my first job out of college was actually working in a television station. And so at a TV station, I had one job. I was the technical director, and I basically hit a button where I would change from like this program to that program, from this commercial to that commercial. And that's all I did. But then I had a tape operator that did this and a program director that did that, and then we have talent that did these other things. But now when you stream, you're doing it all yourself. So in a way, like it's great because I can control every little thing I want. But on top of having to work on all of these skills and make your guests comfortable and make the show the best so that your viewers enjoy it and all that. On top of all that, you're hitting all these buttons on this screen and you have to look like you're just very casual like this. Even though in your head you're panicking and crying and you're wondering, is my mom going to yell at me tomorrow because she watched the stream and like it hiccuped or something, or did I cut wrong, or I don't know. So
I totally related, to everything you said right there. I think I feel your pain on pretty much every sentence you just said. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, like I said, you kind of answered my question. So I'm going to ask the question anyway, and then I'll add it.
Right.
Because we're going to ask you, you're a teacher by trade. How do you feel your profession impacts your gaming sessions and your YouTube channel? But you kind of like really dive right in and, pull that out. So the add-on to that question would be, do you think that at some point in time it's a hindrance, or is it always a blessing to have what your background?
My teaching background as far as like when I stream and when I run games.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's a blessing 95% of the time. 95% of the time, like I feel like from 20 years of teaching and 35 years of game mastering, if there's a Venn diagram of teaching and GMing, so much, they overlap by so much. there are so many times when I'm in the classroom and I find myself bringing things in from a game. The way I might set up like a scenario, the way that I choose my words because I'm trying to lead the students to some sort of a conclusion, or I'm trying to lead them to draw conclusions between each other. Right? So I want to set up 2 or 3 things, and these might be like 2 or 3 clues that I'm setting up in my game. I'm setting up like, we have factor X, we have factor Y, and factor Z. And even the way that I'm speaking, right? So the pauses that I take, did I say everything too quickly, and did I blend it together so that some of the students that, are not so quick with like on an audio level or whatever, did they pick it up? Did I write it on the board correctly? These are all things that I often sort of consider when I'm running my games. And like I said, 95% of the time, the skills are transferable. Because ultimately I'm taking text and I'm turning it into something that is accessible to everyone at the table or in the classroom, no matter what their particular best sense is. So some are very tactile and they need to feel handouts. Some have to write something down to process it. Others have to see it. Others have to hear it. Others need maps. I need to translate everything. So when I'm speaking to a classroom and when I'm talking to it, when I'm running at a table, I'm always thinking about my players and the way that they they take on information and how best to use it. There's 5% of the time when I'm trying to think of a specific example, but there are examples when I try things at the table or try things in the classroom and they worked in GMing or they worked in the classroom, but then I'm like, that didn't go over so well. But for the most part, like they are very, very transferable skills. And I think indeed some of the best GMs I've ever played with have been teachers. And I feel like some of the best GMs I played with, I'm thinking I should hire this guy to teach at, my school. So yeah, for the most part, I consider it a blessing.
And you're one of a few people that could say, I'm gonna call your mother, and it's actually going. It can actually happen.
Though it depends. Currently, I can say that. Though I've taken gigs in the past where it's college level, and well, I guess that's okay. You know what? I have called a few parents at college level as well. But usually when you get to that level, it's not really something that it's not as effective as it is.
Doesn't hold too much weight.
Yeah, that's a tough time. Yeah.
Fun.
All right, well, go ahead, Ed.
You good, Ed? Oh, I saw you coughing. You're muted. If you were coughing, you're still muted. All right, maybe I should go ahead with the next question.
I got it. Ice cube went down the wrong pipe.
Oh my goodness! Be careful. Be careful.
Oh, I lost my.
Anthony, are you okay? Do you need CPR?
Okay?
If you do, don't count on us.
Anthony, are you okay? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're good.
I lost it. So my favorite thing in all your shows, I love your interviews, but I really love your actual plays.
Thank you.
You always manage to have such a unique and original concept for your games. How much planning and prep do you do before you start a new game or a stream?
Way too much. So I can show you, actually, I can show you one of the adventures I wrote for a 4-hour session. It's about, I don't know, it's something like, it's 36 pages long. I do a lot, and for the most part, I try to put a lot of prep into it. I cannot always do that. It's not a realistic thing. It's just something I happen to have a couple or 3 hours that I'll sit down. Like I just happen to enjoy writing stuff up. But I try my best to put quite a bit of time and effort into my one shots. I feel like the problem though is that, or the thing to remember though, is that when I'm putting my stuff together for a one shot, there's kind of this curve, right? So I'm not sure if you feel it or if people watching kind of feel it, but I put my preparation is very front loaded. I will prep and prep and prep and prep and prep and prep for hours for like a 4-hour game. And then it's done and I move on and I have to think of another one shot idea. So with that in mind though, when I'm playing a series of games, it just decreases with the games that follow, because usually a lot of the ideas that I develop at the very beginning for the very first episode or the first session, a lot of those ideas will sort of take root and then they'll just sort of begin to grow and continue going forth into the second, third, fourth, and fifth episode. And the other thing is, when you start, for me, when I start a game in the first episode, basically, with the exception of all the quizzing I'm doing of my players and asking what sort of game they want to play and a session 0 that we might run, most of the ideas are kind of coming from me. But once the first game starts, I'm just like very quickly stealing all of my players' ideas, and those become the seeds that grow and take root in my second, third, fourth, and fifth adventure. And sometimes those games are easier to kind of just sort of like let go, because when I step back, the players, I think if I've done a good job as a game master and I've given my players fertile grounds to sort of to work with, then they're going to develop their own ideas. And I basically see the job of a game master as kind of like an inverted pyramid. You sort of, at the very beginning, you offer all of this stuff here at the top. And it's based on things that you listen to your players about before you start the game, what they're interested in doing, what kind of characters they're designing, where they want to go, what they want to explore. And then you sort of, you put all that out in the beginning, and then slowly you step back and you just sort of watch the players take over. And then by the end of the first session, as far as I'm concerned, as a GM, I'm not really very much involved, but then it kind of resets a little bit, but it's not so much. It's the next pyramid is not so wide, because I'm going to steal a whole bunch of ideas from my players, and the whole process starts kind of over again. And then to a larger extent, it starts with like the arc of the whole story, whether it be 5 episodes or whether it be 20.
I gotta give you like one huge major accolade, because this whole point that Anthony made about your unique and original concepts, you did something and I got to be a part of it, and I still think it's the coolest thing in the world, and I'm definitely gonna have to steal it one day, was having cameos
Oh yeah.
in your adventure.
So fun.
That was like one of the coolest
Solo
things ever.
down.
Yeah, solo down.
Solo down.
I
Yeah, that just sort of, and of course I stole that from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So for those of you that haven't watched my channel, and I'm sure there's more people that haven't than have, but last summer I did a limited series in the style of a comic book called Hero State, and it sort of envisions a present day in which heroes actually popped up like in the 30s and 40s, and I wrote a big background for it. And I got Dean to come in. I had DM Scotty McFarlane, who's very, very nice he's a very nice friend of the channel as well. And I got Walter Don Williams to come in. And so in the style of Marvel films, what I did was I basically created 5 or 6 solo adventures, and then they all tied up with our, Infinity War in a 2-part Hero State, 2-issue miniseries. And the cameos were just sort of, I thought back to the first time I saw Samuel L. Jackson just pop up on the Iron Man movie, and how new and different, and how that blew everyone away. And I thought back and I thought, I don't think anyone has ever done that. And so it was a little hard coordinating, because, it wasn't like I had the players. I would run a solo game, and then I would have a standby cameo that I hadn't told the star of the solo adventure about, but they knew something was coming. And I would say, okay, you walk into a room and you see so-and-so. And then boom, I would drop Dean as solo down into the show. And then the next hour or two would be with Dean showing up. And it would be more like a team up. And so I kind of wove all those together. Yeah, and of course it was stolen. Just stolen.
It was
from me.
awesome. It was really awesome. And I mean, I got to do it two
I'm
or
glad
three
you liked
times,
it. Oh yeah.
you know, and it was just really cool because, like you said, it tied it together. I got to meet got great people, got to play, but it was a very unique way to do a live stream. You know, so
Yeah.
when you go back and watch it, it added that element of it being a full-blown story, you
Yeah.
know, it added the crinkles, you know, which again, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that on a live stream game.
Yeah, I appreciate you being a good sport about it, because I was very worried. I felt bad because the thing is, essentially, you waiting for 1 or 2 hours, like on standby, not knowing when you're going to pop in, having to kind of watch the episode live because you kind of have to pick up, and we can't take like an hour to figure out, you know, to sum up all the things that happen. You were, and all of the cameos, DM Scotty cameoed, and Walter just had a full part actually, and you cameoed for me at least 4 times, and the idea that you would be a good sport about it is really important, because
It was awesome.
by doing that you really helped out a lot. So I apologize that you had to wait in the wings 2 or 3 times, but it really made the
No
story,
apologies necessary. I mean, they were good games. And it was enjoyable to watch. But then to know, you know, it was kind of like being a kid in a candy store. You know, I'm sitting on the edge because I know, you know, mommy said I get to go in and get whatever I want. You know,
Well,
so
cool. I'm glad you took it that way. I'm glad. Thank you.
It's definitely a super cool concept, and it executed very well. Yeah, it's awesome. I definitely have thought about doing that in like more like a home game setting, but yeah, it's awesome that you pulled it off for a stream. Yeah,
It was hard. Yeah. But thanks to Dean, we did it.
Yeah, but yeah, moving along here a little bit. So we met through our love for the Cypher System.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us why you enjoy the system? You already spoke about Numenera a little bit, but not really the system. And what do you think it does well? And if you want to add more, what can you think it can do better?
Okay. The reason I fell for the Cypher System was pretty simple. I could just focus on narrative, and I know this is probably nothing that's original to hearing about the Cypher System, but both literally and you know, and maybe figuratively, I love the fact that it frees me up. I don't know if you notice, I also tend to like gesticulate a lot. I'm always moving around. I like to have my hands free. I like to have my mind free to focus on helping grow the story in a way that's going to satisfy all of my players. You know, picking up little bits here and there and turning them into major threads. And because I don't really have a mind for numbers, I've always had trouble with other games. And to me, Cypher System it's an enabler. It basically empowers the game master to run a story focused on the narrative. So I'm sure all your viewers know that the game master doesn't roll a die, except maybe every once in a while they might roll a d6 or a d100 to decide something. But basically, for the most part, it's a diceless. It's commando role playing is really you're going commando with the Cypher System. There's no dice involved at all for the game master, and that's really what does it for me. It allows me to focus on the story. It allows me to focus on my players. And if I had to like, there are some people that can do it. They have the math in their head. They don't even think of it as math because they have a talent that they worked on, or they have an ability that they sharpened. I never sharpened those skills. And so for me, the idea that I can, you know, the English stuff in my head, the narrative, the story is stuff that I can all see. I can picture all of it. And it's a little bit fly by the seat of my pants sometimes, but for the most part, Cypher System really frees me up for that. So, you know, there's no question in my, there's a lot of other great systems. I have zillions of them right here. I'd love to play all of them, but like if I had to pick one, this is the one that I would choose.
Is there anything you think it could do better?
You know, it was actually something that Sean K. Reynolds kind of mentioned once, and I didn't even know it at the time, and I wasn't sure about it. And I'm not even sure if maybe it's a problem. I think it's just a concept that I have a hard time wrapping myself around. So like when you have two NPCs, say, fighting, you know, you kind of have to, like, I kind of get the theory behind it and all of that, but I think basically you just sort of look at the two levels, and whichever one is higher eventually will win out or whatever. But for me, that works like at a certain level, but I also want to insert a little bit of randomness in there where
Oh, we don't use that rule.
Oh, you don't use it. Do you have like your players?
Yeah, we do contested roles.
I was gonna say that's what, you know, that's what I would do.
I brought the old Palladium games into it. I make them do contested roles and let the players add whatever abilities in order to improve.
That's a wonderful thing too. Like I've actually had scenes where I guess they're kind of like those scenes when you're playing a video game where suddenly you become a different part of the story. You take on the role of the sidekick or whatever, and you go off on a mission. Like I've had things happen where I'll say, okay, you are now the good guy and you're now the bad guy. Go ahead and play it out the way that you would really play it out. And then I have them like fight it out. But I think that that's a really interesting solution to it. However, I do see the other side of it, and actually I used to draw from Amber Diceless, and I think Amber Diceless, speaking of you know, stuff from Eric Woodchuck, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who has passed on unfortunately, but who designed Amber Diceless and worked at Palladium for a long time. I think they use cards or something, and then like when you lay the two cards down, whichever one's higher, that's the PC the NPC that wins. But that might be it. But it's very much like a nitpick. It's like it's not really to me even.
Let me rephrase that, because some people are chat. What I mean by we use contested roles when it impacts the narrative. If it isn't impactful to the story, then we just gonna, you know, we just gonna narrate it as a GM.
Right.
If the two NPCs interacting directly affect what goes on in the narrative, then we'll roll it out. That's what I meant by that.
Well, I think sometimes there's also, you have to kind of like when you're a game master, you kind of have to pay attention to the pacing, right? And sometimes the pacing of this long drawn out fight that you might otherwise roll for or whatever, sometimes you have to kind of fudge it a little bit just because you want to, at least I do. I want to move it along a little bit. And sometimes I'll just play it out like a cinematic, you know, and I'll just say they fight and then this happens, but I try to add like some sort of life to it that moves the story along.
Like I said, for me, the idea, like I think somebody in the chat is saying that we're talking about contested roles. Literally, I don't know if everybody understands the way I do it is there's a 20-sided roll, and then the levels of the character get added in. You know,
right?
You know, and that will fluctuate it one way or the other.
Because, you know, explain it so they mean. I know what you mean by added in, but
basically like this. Let's just say I got a level 5 character versus a level 3 character. Okay, the level 5 character rolls a 3, but he's 2 levels higher, so he gets
6 to the roll.
I add 6 to his roll. Versus the level 3 character who may roll, you know, if he rolled a 15, he could still actually beat the level 5 character, but he would literally have to roll higher because he's at a disadvantage versus a higher level character. So these things always, you know, come into play when we use a contested roll. You know, and of course, any assets or anything else that players want to try to help NPC out with, or so on and so forth.
Right.
Very
Pieces
easy.
or the task, or there's an interesting variation that Bruce Cordell, I don't know if he came up with it or not, but in the Stars Are Fire, you take a look at the difference in the levels of the ships,
Yep.
and then that creates your difficulty level or factors into. I forget exactly what it was, but I remember
it's
reading it.
basically the same thing we were just saying.
Yeah, it's very interesting idea, I think.
Before Dean, before you ask our last question, if anyone has a question for Matt, please put it in now so we can calculate it. Because as soon as we're done with our last question, we'll ask all the chat questions.
All right. So no problem. So Matt, we've had a great discussion here tonight, and we've talked about a lot of things. But what can we look forward to from Matt Yancik and Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain? What's coming in the future? What's on the horizon?
So I have, of course, more interviews coming. I'm taking a minor break at the moment. I do have another a few more weeks of interviews coming. I'm taking a break because it's the summertime and I'm going a little crazy. But I have a sequel coming to the Fierce Brood, and actually the Fierce Brood is just chapter 1 of a bigger story I call The Crawling Shadow. And so that is something I hope to sort of start streaming, and we're going to do it slightly differently than we were doing it before. So I'm thinking of actually recording it, editing it, and then uploading it as 2-hour segments that will premiere on Friday nights. Not 100% certain on that, but I want to add a lot of music and titles and sound effects and visual effects into it. We'll see how that comes along. I have like a few shorter mini series, which, because if you watch the channel, you'll see that I don't just do like these campaigns, and I don't do one shots. I also have like 4 or 5 episode limited series that I do, that I don't really want to announce yet, and we'll all talk about it. And then as far as like sort of non-streamed stuff, like just stuff for the company in general, I am trying to sort of fully develop. I have a couple or 3 different settings that I'm trying to put together in a book or 2 maybe. It's probably not something that anyone's going to see until like what year is this?
2022.
Okay, so it's probably not going to be until 2023 that stuff comes together. But since the license is now open, and Monte Cook Games has come down from the mountain and lifted all of us little folks up to on high, I couldn't help but take advantage of something like that to try and launch an idea or 2 that I have in the future. And then last but not least, are we talking about? I didn't know.
You can make that little announcement now. I think it'll be pretty cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to announce the first time that I will be doing an actual play with the Cypher Unlimited crew this Friday. So I am running a game for them, the title of which I've stolen from a translated title, which I'm not going to say where it comes from, but the game is called The Sixth Passenger, and it is Isaac Asimov meets Arthur C. Clarke, meets Sean Connery in Outland, meets Rendezvous with Rama, kind of all wrapped into one. So we're going to be running this game on MML, on Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain, Friday, I believe at 9 o'clock, or was it 8? Did we say 8? I think we said 8. I don't want to pin them down. Don't record the answer. Don't record the answer. We'll talk about it. It's going to be Friday. Just know that. It'll be live streamed. I'm really excited to be running for these guys. Like, this is actually really neat. I specifically designed this adventure for them. I'm a little nervous running for the Cypher Unlimited crew because I know how well you know the game. And I often play fast and loose with the rules, and I often kind of like throw little rules out or change them on the fly, or just say, we're not going to worry about that, because I go for the narrative. But I'm very, very happy to say we'll be playing. The Six Passenger takes place in the year 2100, so about 80 years, 78 years in the future. These guys are going to play the crew of a deep space cargo hauler known as the Bamboo Cutter, and I'll just leave it at that. So you'll have to.
We had
tune
a
in on
session
Friday.
0, and I'm really excited for the characters. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I'm really looking forward to it. You know.
And as far as fast and loose for the rules, I don't know if you.
I don't think you're gonna have any issues.
Don't tell Monty.
That's the least of your worries.
I don't think you're gonna have any issues.
I know, right?
I'm gonna have
see.
Monty on the phone as we play.
Right.
In case
You
you,
know
have
what
any
we-
slip-ups, I'm gonna let him
You know
know.
what I think? You know what I think we should do? And this is my idea, and I gotta say this, I gotta record this right now. Here's what I think we should do. I think someday we should play a Cypher game. We should invite Monty to come on, and we'll put him in a tiny little box in the corner, right? And every time we screw up a rule, he hits a button, and a big red X comes up on the screen, just like on Family Feud. And then when he hits 3 X's, we basically get downgraded to a player. And then Monty comes on, shows us how it's done, and then he steps back. He goes back into the little box, and then another one of us.
If we did that, Monty would be the GM like within 15 minutes.
Probably. Yeah. He'd be like, that's not sanctioned or authorized by Monty Cook Games.
Basically, every time we use effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll find out how it gets used.
On the
We'll see.
minute somebody rolls a D20 and Dean goes, I still get the GM intrusion. I ran an impromptu, every once in a while I'll just go on the server and say, anybody want to play a game?
That's a great way to meet.
And we ran an
I
impromptu.
love
And the first 20 that rolled up, Claire Jackson from Infinite Construct was in the game. She absolutely knew, that's our house rule. But for everyone else, I was like, oh, you rolled a 20. I still get the intrusion. Don't blame
Yes.
me, blame Dean, because he gave
Right.
me that rule.
Is it true? Who was it? I don't know if it was Monty or someone else. There was some creator who wrote a game, and he gave out these business cards. But on one side was their name, and then on the other it says, this business card is good for 5 XP. And then they signed it, and it was the creator of the game that said it. So, and it said like, this card may be used at any point, or this card is good for 1 reroll on any, and like someone would be playing with their friendly neighborhood GM, and like they'd screw up the roll, and then they'd pull out this business card and go, this was given to me by Monty Cook. If you look on the other side, you'll see that it's signed, it is notarized, and it says, Monty says I get 1 more roll. And then you should also tear this up when I've used it. And then they would like tear it up. And was it? I don't know if it was Monty.
I don't know who it was.
I don't
Yeah,
know, but
somebody
I'm
was
gonna
doing
bring it
that.
up when I see Monty at Game Hole Con.
But that's-
I know, ask
but-
him.
I heard you get
Yeah.
that
But you know-
cards for
Yes.
re-rolls. I want one of those.
Yeah.
What's funny about what you're saying though is like, we'll go to Gen Con. I'll be standing around talking to Sean or whoever, and people will bring up stuff like that. And Sean's favorite answer is, so did everybody at the table have fun? And he's like, yeah, okay, that's a good rule. And walk away.
Right.
Matt, chat is saying that was Steve Jackson that did
Oh, was
that.
it Steve Jackson? Okay.
It says sounds like Steve Jackson, and someone else said, didn't Hackmaster do that? Well, again, I don't know any of these
No,
names.
I think it would have been
Steve
yeah.
Jackson.
Either way,
though.
Monty, you gotta print up some cards.
Either way, yeah, right.
I mean, we'll have to tell Monty to do that for.
So
Game
he
Con.
has 355 days to print up cards for the next gen.
As a matter of fact, we should actually have Monty give out a couple of those virtually for the giveaway.
Oh, I will say this though, Sean K.
That would
Reynolds,
be
I
funny.
don't know if I have mine, but let me see, I might have them. But Sean K. Reynolds actually made us some Cypher.
Oh, I have mine.
Cards.
Oh, yeah, my XP card. I know mine are
There
right
you
there.
go.
Bro, I
And
have
they-
mine.
If they did it digitally, though, they'd have to do them as NFTs because
Oh,
otherwise
God,
people are just gonna
no.
like reproduce them, and they have to be. That way, they're
Oh,
only
God,
one-time
no.
use.
Oh, this
That's
is
what he
gonna
should
piss
do.
me off.
He should
Where
make
are my-
ciphers that are NFTs, so they're true one-time use,
Oh
and
my
then
God.
they eat up, and he sends them out digitally,
That,
right?
that
And
is
they're
a fun
totally
idea
random,
for like a
and you
cyberpunk
never
game.
know what one you're gonna get. It's like magic cards or something, right? And
Hey,
so
where-
every once in a while.
Dean, you got your Sean K. Yeah, he actually made
Mine are
us
behind the
unlimited
screen.
XP cards and mailed them to us. It was
That's
so
cool.
awesome.
But
He was
Yeah.
giving out his dice, I heard at Gen Con.
while I go and
Yeah, he
look for
was.
mine, because I think mine are right there.
He actually put
Um,
our logo on it. It was really
yeah.
cool. It was
Ladies
so
and
much
gentlemen, the interview is broken down.
Yeah,
See what
it
happens when I come
100%
on a
has.
Oh, they're leaving me. They're all sick of me.
But
I guess
before-
I'm running the channel now.
Before we go into our famous rapid fire questions,
I'm so
and
nervous.
while
about
these guys are trying to find the XP cards, I'll ask the questions from the audience.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that people would want to ask me stuff, but that's awesome. Thank you.
Scribe
Thank you.
Neo Seth asks, when is
Oh.
the next long campaign going to be, and who is going to be the next GM on the machine?
Oh my gosh. GM's in the machine. Well, can we announce it, Anthony? Can we say?
Oh, I don't know.
Anthony, he's asking. Remember how the next person that I planned on having on GM's in the
Oh,
machine?
Yeah, you
Anthony's
could.
like, yeah, Anthony is the one that is the one I'm holding out for. I'm not doing another episode
And
of
trust me
GM's
when
in the
I tell
machine
you,
until
we have
Anthony
a
comes on.
crazy idea.
Yes, yes, I'm a little nervous about it. People may get hurt, but you know, it's all going to be digital pain. It's not going to be analog real
Yeah,
pain, so we don't have to worry.
unfortunately the next one on the machine.
good.
It should be a-
No,
And I'll come after him. I'll take the plunge. Put the noose around my neck.
I would love it. And actually, why don't we get all three of you at a certain point? We'll just rotate.
I don't know if me being a GM on a stream is a good idea.
But there you
Well,
go.
see, you don't have to be a GM. You just have to come up with an idea for it.
Oh,
and,
I'm
as
good at
far
ideas.
as far as the next long campaign that I'm playing, so as I was saying, I don't want to announce the title, but so the Fierce Brood was actually chapter 1 of a series I'm calling The Crawling Shadow, and I envision it kind of as 5 chapters. I think I've started writing it actually, and so I'm doing a long campaign, a sequel to the Fierce Brood or a continuation of it, which I'm hoping to get going before. I know this is horrible to say, but before Christmas. I think like September's not realistic because I'm just going back to start teaching again. October might be a little bit too soon. I kind of need to recharge my batteries, but maybe November or December we'll restart and get into the campaign. And until then, I'll probably be doing some warm up actual plays and maybe a mini series in there or so.
Solo RPG guy just said. Solo RPG guy just said GM roulette with Matt.
We've already had
Oh.
that discussion.
You're stuck. You're in.
It's hard
mean,
getting me. Yeah, they
We've already had that discussion. So yes, Matt will be coming on GM Roulette.
I
as
guess
next.
I guess I am. I guess so. Unless my mother says otherwise.
Lex Littner asks, will Friday stream be available somewhere else? Or later
Ooh.
somewhere?
So as in like Twitch or something like that, they mean, or
It'll be
you know
on.
what?
It'll be on YouTube afterwards.
It'll be on YouTube. We're gonna do it live. So we're running it live on YouTube, and if he is asking or she or they are asking if it'll be available like on Twitch or other kind of platforms,
Yeah, I think that's what they were implying.
most people that know me know that I've been very slow to adopt the other platforms. More people have been asking me about Twitch, and I really think I ought to get my channel on it. So I will be looking in the next month or two into starting up like a Twitch stream. I just have to look at the logistics of it and what that sort of takes. If it makes my job a lot more difficult, like there's a lot more prep or something I have to do for it, I'm not so sure. But if you know, if it's kind of easy, if it's one of those things like when you prep your first game and there's a ton of stuff at the start, but then it gets easier with each successive episode, I will probably be probably be doing that, expanding to Twitch as well. So
Definitely great information, but just to clarify, they were asking, will it be on the channel later, like after we're live, after we're done, is it still going to be on YouTube to watch?
Yes, it's on there until YouTube refuses to let me keep it on there anymore. But yes, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Oh boy, talk about missing questions. I'm gonna have to rewatch that one.
You survived our questions. You survived the chat's questions, but those were all, that was the easy stuff. You just got.
This makes me nervous.
This is our world famous rapid fire questions.
Let me get a hard drink.
We dig deep into your soul. We pull out. We dig deep into your mind. We pull out your soul. We stretch it on the table for the whole world to see. Are you ready for our world famous rapid fire question?
No, but let's go anyway.
All right, so here we go. Drum roll.
I'm always horrible with drum rolls.
Player or GM?
GM. I'm a GM. There's no question. I'm all. Do you want to know why? Am I allowed to answer why, or do I have to just go on to the next one?
No, you can answer.
I'm a clumsy player, and that's actually one of my blind spots, and it's something I have to sort of work on because my brain is just set on GM, world building, writing stuff up, creating things, like all of that stuff. Like my mind is set on that all the time, and I find it very difficult to be a player. However, there's one great thing about being a player, and I can't remember who I heard say this, but if you ever find yourself as a GM being a player in someone else's game and the game is not going very well, the best thing I think you can do is just be a good player and set a good example. I've been at tables where I'm playing with somebody who is new to GMing, and everybody kind of knows I've been teaching or GMing for like years, and people will often look to me. I've been teaching in classrooms like this as well. And I think it's unfortunate, like I try to just be the model player and throw my ideas as far as my character goes out there and not show up or not try to correct or not try to help, and I be the player that I want to have at my own table. So sorry, that wasn't very rapid fire. Quick, what's the next one? Quick.
Pull punches or TPK?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Pull punches or TPK?
TPK.
Ooh.
Oh, and I've done it before.
Nice.
I've luckily never.
Why are you gonna tell us that if we're playing with you on Friday?
I've never.
I think what's funny. I think you're the first person to ever say TPK.
TPK, like
And he
absolutely.
said it with such confidence too.
Yes,
TPK,
but here's the thing. Okay, let me explain one thing.
I got a closet full of good players right now.
If you have played in any of my games, you have played in the one shared universe that I have. There are many levels to my universe. So think of it this way, like if you die in one, I really see you just sort of moving on to another universe. And there are echoes of your character that come back in other games when people are paying attention.
Sure, make us feel good about. Sure, make us feel good about the death.
Picture Matt's basement full of just players shackled. It puts the lotion on its skin.
Yeah. But I have only been in that situation a few times. I've killed players, not players. Oh my God. I haven't killed any players. Wait, let me rewind that and correct. I've killed player characters. TPKs are very few and far between with my games.
Not without incident.
Somebody in chat, scribe Neil said, well, I choose violence.
Yes, but here's the thing. You do have to occasionally use license, right? But I'm not saying that I'm opposed to a TPK. There are times when a TPK will end the story very well.
Online or in-person gaming?
Both. I can do both, and there are wonderful things. This is like asking. I would prefer to play in person all the time, but I gotta say there are different tools for different things. It's like apples and oranges. There are wonderful things that I can do in a Zoom game, and that I can't do in a real game. But then there are things, obviously, like the warmth and the companionship and like the simple friendship and all of that is a little bit different in person. But honestly, I can do both. I can do both and have a great time at both.
Nice. Announce the difficulty number or keep it a secret.
Secret. I will announce the difficulty number for the first couple rolls when I'm on the stream, because when I'm streaming an actual play, I want my my viewers to understand how the system works. So if somebody is coming on for the first time and they haven't heard it, they don't know how Cypher System works or how, like, 5e works or whatever it happens to be. I want the viewer to watch and understand that and understand what we're doing. If I'm playing with players at a convention, like I played 2 games at Gen Con online this weekend, and the players were a little rusty, I announced and told them what the difficulty levels were for the first couple of rolls. And I told them, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's weird because I'm sort of the opposite. I think if I'm not streaming, I usually tend to always announce the difficulty number. But when I am streaming, I rarely do, because I want the audience to have that suspense of whether the action is going to pass or fail.
I totally understand that. And I also think that there's something about you're sort of taken out of the action if you're announcing how rules work. But with my streams, I think if anybody watches them, you'll see that I build title cards so that I'll put the rules up and I'll say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first roll of the night. Let me show you how Cypher System works in 5 steps. And I put up a title card and I say, first I find a difficulty level, and then the player eases, or like the task is eased or hindered, and then all this other stuff. I will do that because I want my viewers to kind of understand how the game is broken down and how it works. And then following that, I won't. And usually with people I played with a million times who play Cypher all the time, I don't even announce it. Don't bother. But sorry. Rapid fire. Next one. I'm ready.
It's difficult to do rapid fire when someone you constantly having conversations with
won't talk. Yeah, I know, right? It's when I won't stop talking. Sorry. Am I breaking the show? I'm breaking the show, aren't I?
The show's been broken 3 years ago when we started this thing.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. So we're good. That's why we fit together so well.
Yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Dirty time. All right. So, salty or sweet snacks at the gaming table?
Oh, salty for sure. I'm like, it's horrible, like for my digestion, and we won't get into that. That's definitely part of the rapid fire I don't want to talk about. But salty for sure. Like I've got like those Tostitos, like chips with the hint of lime. Oh man. Oh boy. And then like it's hard to mix salty and like, but then you can get like salty. I won't get into it, but salty, yes.
Matt, come on.
You share the chips with the players? You have
you come from the days of Funyuns and Mountain Dew, so you have to understand.
Yes, Mountain Dew is a good one, but it gives me heart palpitations. And then how like you as game masters, I'm sure anyone out there that's a GM has experienced this. You have a great game, you lay down in bed, and then you can't sleep for 6 hours because you're plotting and planning and all of that. If I drink Mountain Dew, I won't, and I play a good game, I won't sleep for 4 days, and my heart will be beating like this, and I won't stop, and I'll irritate everyone around me because I'm only thinking about the next session. And one thing I'm kind of famous for is actually, after that game at 2 or 3 in the morning, if I'm not asleep, I will text a player and I'll say, by the way, I just checked on this rule and it looks like you were right, or I was wrong, or here it is. And I'll send like a photograph of it and like highlight it and all of that stuff.
I know it's 3 in the morning, but I'm still thinking of this.
Luckily, it is, but nowadays it's really helpful because I text people in Alaska. So there's 4 hours of difference. So I can text them at 3 o'clock in my time. And for them, it's like 11 in the evening, and it's fine.
You can text me at 3 in the morning. It's okay.
Yes, and you as well, because Dean, you're up all the time anyway, I feel.
I don't sleep.
RP or combat?
RP, definitely. I'm a narrative guy. I like to tell stories. I cut back on, if combat's like dragging out and suddenly people aren't interested in it anymore, or I'm sensing like now's a good time for a climactic part, I'll just, I don't want
GM
this thing to
intrusion.
go on and on and on. Yes, exactly. Something happens. The floor drops out and the whole house goes up in flames. Like that's a better way to end it than just playing out. For me, anyway.
Yep.
Hit
So
point
next
after
one.
hit point.
PDFs or physical books?
Physical books. I am very much an analog guy in a digital world, even though I sort of, I'm there all the time, but I need to have like, this is stuff that I've written, and I can't look at a PDF. I think it was Stephen King that said something like, you're looking at this little window of what you've written or what has been written, and it feels like the story just goes on for like 50 feet that way and 50 feet that way, and it's hard to scroll up and down. So I really prefer to have the pages in front of me.
Pen and paper or digital notes?
Now you've stumped me. Digital notes, but I will often do pencil and paper planning. So I create flowcharts, and with my flowcharts, I will usually kind of like, and this is again me being more visual than I am like digital. So a good example of what my stories look like when I rough them out, and I don't know if people can see this, but this is essentially a flowchart. And it's a sandbox that I build, but the sandbox has like a particular order that the players discover it in. So when I'm plotting and planning, I might write out something like this. And then, when I'm taking notes or whatever, I've usually got like something open and I'll write.
You're a visual kinesthetic, what you can see and touch.
I think I am. Yeah, I've got to see it and touch it. And if I don't, then it doesn't stick in my brain.
Pre-written adventures or original content?
Usually original content, but I feel like pre-written adventures are almost more work because I have to go and read the whole thing and then figure out how it's going to run. And then like if something happens, if we go in a twist in the world, I sometimes don't know what happens. But if it's like my own pre-written adventure, I kind of have an idea of how I would deal with it. So it makes it a little easier, I think.
You survived the rapid fire question.
Is that? Oh, did I do it? Okay. Oh my goodness! Thank goodness. And I'm only sweating a little. I'm only a little nervous. Okay. Very
Great job. Great job.
Great job. Excellent.
Thank you. I tried.
Before we wrap everything up, Matt, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say to our viewers out there in the interwebs?
And maybe this is the teacher in me, but I also feel like it's a GM's job as well. But I really urge you, if there's something you want to do, give it a try, and don't be afraid for anything that people like tell you can't do or ridicule you about or whatever. Have fun with it. I think you can find success where you look for it and in what you look for. And while I am not, the biggest channel on YouTube, I also have built around me like a really nice community of people that I consider to be friends, even though like these fellas here, I've never met them in person. But a lot of times I think I scroll through Twitter and I try not to, but I've had to start scrolling through it just because I run a channel and I'm trying to keep up to date on stuff and promote my stuff and talk to people. Sometimes you scroll through Twitter and it seems awfully negative, and it seems like a spiral just into darkness. And honestly, what's kept me grounded and kept me kind of going is that I tried stuff and I now talk to people, and I'm getting to talk to cool creators, and I talk to cool just people I consider friends. I mean, I would call them creators, but actually they're friends. And I think it's really important that you just sort of put yourself out there and try it. And it doesn't matter if it's streaming. It doesn't matter if you want to start like if you want to knit mittens or something. Like whatever you want to do, you should go out there and please try it. You're making the world a better place. You're making yourself happier. And if you want to knit, mittens, there's someone out there that wants to buy them or wants to wear them. So there's always a place. There's a yin to your yang. So please do give whatever it is that you're interested in honest try.
Thanks for that, Matt. That
I was
was
going to insert a badly placed joke, but that was so like heartwarming. I can't do it.
like I said, nicely. I was about to say nicely said, Matt. That was awesome. So before we, end things, Anthony, I know you have something you need to say to everybody out there.
No, first off, I want to say thank you, Matt, before I even go into my spiel. Thank you,
you.
Matt, for coming on. Visit the Matt's YouTube channel because it's
Thank you.
absolutely phenomenal. I know we say that a lot is because most of our guests are people that we're fans of to begin with, and Matt's no exception. Not only are we huge fans of Matt, we consider Matt a friend. And not only go to his channel, but check us out this Friday on Matt's channel. We'll be streaming.
Yes.
It's gonna be a
Crossover.
blast. I guarantee you, we're gonna be playing characters that we've never played before. This is gonna be awesome. So please tune in. Al can answer this question. Al, is it 8 or 9 o'clock? Because we were waiting on you for Friday.
It's either or, honestly, or what? Because again, I'm free that day, so whichever is most convenient for y'all. That's why I didn't reply.
So I
I'm
guess
sorry.
we'll say 8 p.m. on Friday, 8 p.m.
Sounds good.
Eastern time on Friday.
Sounds good.
That's just on Matt Yancik. It's going to be a great show. And Matt, we love you. You have an open invitation to come back anytime you want. Dean, you want to say your final thoughts before
Final thoughts, basically, Anthony kind of, hit all the nails on the head, but I'm going to reiterate, Matt Yancik's one of the best people out there. Watch his show, learn from him. There's a lot of talent out here, and Matt falls right in there with all that lot of talent. And he just gives a different perspective. It's a different style, but it's all good. He has great interviews. His interviews are always, he has the most relaxing interviews on the internet. I have to say it like that. They're awesome because they are in depth, but they're extremely relaxing. And thanks again, Matt. Thanks for being part of the family.
No, thank you
A couple
for.
people in chat just say that they on their way to subscribe to your channel now, which is please do.
Thank you very much.
And if you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server. We have the largest fan-run Discord server for all things Monty Cook games. We just hit 4,000 subscribers. We're working on the giveaway as we speak. But if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. It's not as big as our Discord, but there are great conversations being had there as well. If you want to support us in some ways, give us a follow or subscribe here on Twitch, or go to our YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe our videos there. We really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000. Well, I think we're like 70 away from 1,000.
Very close. They're very close.
Yeah, so please go, subscribe on YouTube. And or if you want to support us financially in some way, our videos are always free, but a little financial support helps us out. Give us a donation on Ko-fi. Dean, you distracted me, dude. Our videos will always be free, but what you call it, it helps us out with little things like Zoom calls. Go to our online store, pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch. Like this hat I got on, and Dean doesn't have a shirt on, but Dean usually has a shirt on. Be the coolest kid on the block with some CU merch. Last but not, I think I hit everything. Last but not least, we love you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I didn't mean to distract you, Anthony. I was just trying to show him one of the cool,
like the corner of my eye.
one of the cool items that'll be given away. I bought the last copy at Gen Con for some lucky person who's going to be on who'll be on that giveaway. So sign up, be there or be square. You got a chance to win a copy of The Darkest House. It hasn't even been released to the rest of the public.
I was gonna say, my goodness.
All I gotta say is if you go to our YouTube channel and look up the video of our last giveaway, we have well over $3,000 worth of MCG products that were given away from books, games, all sorts of really cool stuff. Celebrity GMs. So yeah, it's going to be phenomenal. We're working out the details now with MCG and a couple of other sponsors to get some really cool stuff to give away. And as soon as we get everything that we're going to give away, then we'll open up a channel. You have to be on our Discord server because there's where you will go to enter the raffle. But once we get it all set up, I guarantee you it's going to be phenomenal.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yep,
Al?
very exciting stuff to look forward to. Yeah, so if you're not on the Discord for whatever reason, I don't know why you would be here but not on the Discord, definitely join the Discord, because yeah, like Anthony said, that will be the way you will have to enter the giveaway. Will be via the Discord. We'll have a channel set up, so on and so forth. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. But yeah, thank you again, Matt, for coming on, talking with us. It's been a blast as usual. And thank you everybody for coming and watching, chatting with us. Always a blast to hang out with you guys. And yeah, as usual, from us at the CU, we will see you later.